Welcome, listeners, to Thru the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today, they've made time for us, Jeremy and Todd of Fonta Flora. Thank you so much, friends.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here,
guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we just did a quick intro. If y'all would take a second to give your name and kind of your role here at Fonta Flora, please.
All right. I am Jeremy, head of brewing operations.
Very cool.
My name is Todd. I am one of the founders of Fonta Flora.
Very cool. Very excited to be sitting down with y'all, so thank y'all so much. So we're here outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and want to hear kind of where did y'all grow up? Have y'all always been in the North Carolina area, or where are y'all's roots?
Yeah, I am not from here originally. I am from Massachusetts, Central Mass. Grew up there most of my life. Was actually born in California, but moved when I was 3. So yeah, from 3 till end of college. And then my now wife and I met in college, and we road tripped all around and have moved a lot in between to get here. Mostly brewing industry related.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, went from Massachusetts, Utah, very, very briefly, to Colorado, to Texas, to Delaware, to here.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So you've been
So-
across.
Been across and back.
Nice. Lovely,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, now been in North Carolina for almost 8 years.
Okay, gotcha. What's it like being here for that long? Do you have siblings? Do they live here?
I have one younger brother. He's still in Massachusetts, so yeah, most of my
okay,
family's
gotcha.
still up there. So
Okay.
yeah, neither my wife and I have any ties to North Carolina, honestly. We loved the area, like just from visiting, and then I actually moved here for the job here. At
Okay,
Fonta
gotcha.
Flora. So
Okay.
yeah, but we love it here. I mean, there's no plans of leaving.
Rad. Fuck yes.
I think at the time, that was kind of up in the air, but we both love it and things have worked out. So
Yeah, universal
staying
land.
put. Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jeremy, probably thought that this was just going to be another one of those stepping stones, like, then where next? But I wouldn't let him leave.
You're like,
That was the
nope,
plan. Yeah.
hook,
You
drag
made,
in.
you made it too good.
Yeah,
As it
exactly.
should be. All right, well, that brings us to you.
Yeah.
Todd, did you grow up? Where did you call hometown?
Hometown for me is Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Oh, rad.
So yeah, I grew up in inner city Cleveland. Left when I was 18. Kind of meandered about. Ended up on the West Coast. Did an AmeriCorps program for a year out there. Honestly, thought that I was going to stay on the West Coast, and then moved to. I had no ties to North Carolina at the time. Moved from essentially the West Coast to Western North Carolina to attend a little college called Warren Wilson, really cool liberal arts college. When I was there,
Oh,
there was
rad.
700
I'm not familiar with it.
students.
Yeah.
Big. It's like a work college, so everybody on campus had a job.
Oh,
It
sweet.
could be anything from like working on. It's a like heavy agriculture college, so you could be like working on the farm or the garden, or doing things like dishes and in one of the cafeterias. So moved to Western North Carolina for that, and then as Jeremy kind of said about the area, I just absolutely fell in love with Appalachia. There's something about these mountains in particular that have always just immediately felt like home, and there's just a soul about them that has really just kind of had me stuck to this place ever since.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
love
Yeah.
that.
There is something comforting about like having mountains kind of all around you. It's like being wrapped in a hug, or I don't know. It does feel comforting.
Yeah.
We've been away from it for a little while, so it's been
Yeah.
super fun to be driving around and just see the ridges, and then I think it's
Totally.
just so picturesque for sure. So,
Yeah.
what made you want to go to the college, and what did you study, or what did you do?
I ended up studying agriculture.
Okay.
That wasn't the intention necessarily when I headed to Western North Carolina to attend Warren Wilson, but pretty quickly, I mean, it's inundated with really everybody there is just incredibly inspirational and just doing really cool shit, and it was inspiration was not
Lacking.
not lacking at that college, and agriculture was a huge part of it, and so
Okay.
just really, and it was coming up in beer, kind of my journey in home brewing and everything at that time. So it was just really that connection of homebrewing and being obsessed about homebrewing and studying agriculture that, essentially formed what Fonta Flora ended up becoming.
Gotcha. It's like a
obviously,
precursor.
Years later.
Is that when you started homebrewing? Was when you were attending college, or were you homebrewing in high school? Or?
Right out of high school.
Oh, okay,
But
gotcha.
Isn't that ironic? Like, I feel like if anybody, homebrewing in high school, you would have either been like the biggest nerd or like everybody would want to hang out with you. you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Very cool. And then for you, how did you grow up? Did your parents drink? Were you around any culture of drinking?
No, not at all. I didn't really, in high school, had no connection to craft beer whatsoever. As I was saying to you guys before, even now, my family and friends are to this day not remotely interested with craft beer. So every time I go home, my mom still, I've given her a couple beers. She's into wine, so I gave her I pitched this is a mixed culture beer with local grapes, and she was like, "Did it go bad?" So that's my family's experience with beer, and my friends are not too far off from that. High school really had no connection with that, and then going into college, kind of slowly easing into it. I went to school for legal studies, psychology, and sociology, thinking I'd be in the FBI or something. So as far away from
Glad we
this stuff
converted
as
you.
Yeah, exactly.
He is in the FBI.
He still is.
College was kind of a slow introduction into craft beer.
Okay.
Being in Massachusetts, that was a lot of there's some breweries that are no longer there anymore, and then there's some that still are around, but have I don't know. I have a good place in my heart, but it's changed a lot up there.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't until moving to Colorado where I started really getting into it. I had a friend.
Yeah,
who was into
such a
homebrewing.
beer-centric place.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend homebrewing who, I still remember made a cucumber saison and I just broke my brain. So,
That's wild.
That's awesome.
so from there, I was like, "You made this?"
Yeah.
And, kind of just uphill or downhill from there, depending. Threw all legal studies behind me, and
There you
been
go.
beer
You
ever
left it.
since.
I wanted to ask kind of both of you. So
Yeah.
agricultural, then legal studies. But was that inspiration from your parents or your family, or how did you come to that conclusion when going from high school into college, wanting to do those?
I feel honestly quite an anomaly. It's the path that gets us to where we are, in life is just really interesting, and any turn would have changed all of it. But I grew legit grew up in inner city Cleveland. Couldn't have lived further away from a farm or an idea of agriculture. So outside of my grandparents who lived out in the suburbs of Cleveland, having a small tiny garden. That was my really only introduction to ag stuff at that time. And so it was really kind of the journey of from Cleveland, then attending a community college in southeastern Ohio. So kind of first experience really experiencing Appalachia, and then what the hills and hollers of southeast Ohio and West Virginia kind of mean, and then being out on the West Coast and being really inundated with a lot of cool fresh ideas and what people were doing, and kind of driving not really sure what I want to do, but I like being outside, and I like being, what that has to offer, and that just kind of and then being at a school like Warren Wilson that was very ag heavy, but then let alone sustainable agriculture was the focus of my degree. So it's not just big ag. It's how do we make this place better than when we found it, and whatever earth you're working with, how to improve upon that.
Right. Yeah. So it's such an interesting thing of just hearing, I don't know, it's so wild that all four of us are from such wildly different places, and then to come together under a roof that is very old, drinking incredible beer that has been made, it is just a wild experience of hearing stories collide, and how one place takes you to the next place and to the next place.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first beer that you were what is this? And I want to pursue more into this industry.
My dad drank a lot of Michelob, the old school Michelob with that foil on top of that really cool
the
fancy
fancy
bottle.
beer. Yeah.
No, I feel like mine's pretty similar to others. I just remember Sierra Nevada Pale Ale being a pretty pivotal beer. But not really until it was like first year of college, starting to drink Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Up until that point was, just a lot of,
Golden fizzy liquid.
That's right.
Yeah.
Golden fizzy liquid.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what got you into homebrewing?
Bread.
I was trying to make a sourdough starter, and it somehow fermented.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think that realization. My grandfather was a bread baker, so I always kind of grew up baking bread alongside him, and then that realization of like, okay, this is like the liquid version that has alcohol, so let's start making that.
Yeah.
That was kind of a big like pivotal moment, and then started homebrewing from there. And in fact, the first homebrew kit that I bought, the homebrew store forgot the yeast, and I knew nothing about it. My sort of tendency is I just dive right in without like having all my ducks in a row. Jeremy is the complete opposite of that, having all the ducks in a row, which is why he's an incredibly
that's why you have your hooks in him.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, already being finished with the process essentially and needing to pitch the yeast and rummaging through the bag and being like, oh crap, they didn't give me the yeast. So the very first beer that I ever made was fermented with Red Star bread yeast, because I was
about to say, you
baking
probably just
bread.
grabbed your yeast out of your cabinet that you'd been
Totally.
making.
Oh, that's awesome. How did it turn out?
It was awful. It was terrible. Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
That's wild.
Those are always good, kind of impactful first experiences that you have.
Yeah, I know for sure.
All right, so his inspirations and kind of where he came from, we'll translate that back to you. I mean, you went in to do legal, and then how did you end up making beer?
Yeah, so I guess to take a step back, how I got into that was, it's now like such a thing, I guess, of like true crime podcasts and all that kind of stuff. Like that was kind of my interest as a kid.
Okay.
It was just all that kind of stuff, and I was, grew up in like a very small, rich suburb. My parents were not really in the rich part, but like, so they didn't really truthfully like care much what I was going to do. They, just like be happy and all that kind of stuff. But like, it was very much outside from like friends and friends' parents of like, you need to have a good job and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, well, I like true crime and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'll go into legal studies, but it never really like totally clicked. I had like one internship at a courthouse and was like, this sucks.
Oh, okay.
So it was always kind of like on the fence for me. And then again, moving to Colorado, having friends that were homebrewing, and that was when like Odell's was really coming up. That like blew my mind at the time. That was when I started to like make the shift of like, I guess seeing like, this is a job. You can make a career out of this.
Yeah.
Was definitely, we had a great homebrew shop. So it was more just like, I guess even at that time, it wasn't, I realized it could be a career, but I hadn't really gone down that path of like, I wasn't applying places that early on. It was just like more fun on the weekends to do with friends kind of thing.
Yeah.
Experimenting. I mean, I've always been into cooking. So like kind of realizing that's similar, at least a parallel pathway. Like you can use all these ingredients and stuff like that. So
like there's a liquid portion to this.
yeah, exactly. I mean, same as Todd was saying about like bread,
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the eye-opening side of things. And then, I guess even going back to, in terms of what I was drinking, like high school, college, in high school, again, just not being around craft beer drinkers, I really didn't give a shit. I was drinking like Four Loko and things like that. I was like, hey, it'll get you drunk. That's fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then,
that was always the goal, too.
That was always
the
Like
goal,
intro
exactly.
drinking was just like, you got to get to this level, and then the party's really great.
Y'all are going to have to try our Four Loko clone before you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. With the caffeine in it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that, transitioned into like some of the macro ones. Again, still with that mentality a little bit. Like Keystone Ice was my go-to for a little while.
Nice.
But
Yeah,
then
you were there in Colorado, yeah.
Yeah, and then back like I remember Smutty Nose IPA was a big one. Shipyard Pumpkinhead, which I think they still make, was a huge one for me.
It was always interesting to see that like all the East Coast stuff that was shipped to the West Coast, that was always like huge. In our own backyard, it was vice versa for everybody. And it makes sense, but
for sure.
we get stoked for about like all the Shipyard that come in, or like Harpoon IPA. We're like, oh.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are the simple days.
Right.
The simple days. Yeah, now
days.
it's just a wall of can art, and you're like, oh, fuck, I have to make a decision.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're just trying beers, homebrewing on the weekends. Are you still studying at this point? Like, are
No,
you still
so,
in school? Like, what
yeah,
did that look
Colorado,
like?
I was just kind of doing like odd jobs and hadn't really like gone too far into the legal side of things or the brewing side of things. And then
You're still trying to make a decision.
yeah, exactly. And then my wife and I moved from Colorado to Austin, Texas, and that's where we honestly, it's just so funny looking back in hindsight. Like neither of us had jobs. We had no money, and we were just like, whatever, let's just move to a new city halfway across the country. Why not?
Why'd y'all decide
God, that
Austin?
feeling is so great.
I wanted to go to Portland, Oregon. She
Okay.
wanted to go to San Diego, and Austin was like the compromise somehow.
It kind of oddly is.
It is the
Yeah.
weather of San Diego, but the
Yeah,
vibe of
the
Portland,
vibe of
Oregon
Portland.
is Austin,
Exactly.
Texas.
It is.
Yeah.
I like
get
that.
So
Yeah.
that was our kind of mindset. We both wanted to get into beer, and we knew we're reading like Austin was kind of like the up and coming beer city at the time. This was like 2012.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So yeah, we just packed up and moved there.
And she was also into beer?
She was into beer.
Okay.
Yeah, not working in beer at the time. She was working for nonprofits.
Gotcha.
And yeah, when we moved to Austin, that was kind of when like my decision was made. Essentially, I applied to I think like 11 or 12 different law jobs. Didn't get even interviews for them. I mean, in Texas, I realize now, and then like you had to be bilingual for all of those jobs, which I was not.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
I kind of took that as like a universe wake up call. Like, all right, this is time to make up your mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when I started applying quite literally everywhere, volunteering, bartending, doing whatever I could.
Washing
So,
kegs.
Washing kegs. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
lots of keg washing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The most
that's how
humbling
they
of
get you.
practices.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. For
That's
sure.
awesome.
Here,
Well,
wash some kegs, have some beer.
Yeah.
so
Totally.
Todd kind of talked about how Sierra Nevada Pale Ale was something that really stuck in his mind. Was there a beer for you that when you drank it, that's where you're like, okay, this is something I need to pursue further?
Yeah, I do. I think, yeah, back to like the shipyard and the smutty noses in college. But I think once I got to Colorado, Odell IPA was the one that I was like,
Okay.
this is, that one for sure was like a game changer. I still talk about that beer now,
Nice.
Yeah, that was, I think
We
the
should
game
all go to
changer for me.
Austin, have some beer,
Yeah.
have some barbecue. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to take him for the first time because his name is Austin, and I'm
Yeah.
from Texas, so I got to take him. We got to do some tours, so that was great.
Yeah,
Very
that was a lot of fun.
It's a good place to be.
Live Oak was great. ABGB was great.
Yeah.
I like how
No,
ABGB is like in a bowling alley too. It is like the coolest fucking tap room I've
Yeah.
ever been
Yeah,
in.
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Super rad. Super rad. All right, so you're homebrewing, hopefully not with your bread yeast anymore. How did the homebrewing go? And what were some of your next steps of realizing, like, I want to do this for, like, life?
Yeah, I mean, it really just started, like Jeremy was saying, either, downhill or uphill, however you take it. I mean, it just consumed every facet of what I was doing. So, I mean, I was studying agriculture at Warren Wilson. I was working on the garden crew there. Every chance that I got, I was brewing beer. So I was brewing beer in my dorm room. I was brewing beer at it's called a garden cabin, just sort of like the central point of,
awesome.
of where like all the like garden work was done on campus. So I was like on the deck of the garden cabin, just brewing beer every chance I got. So at that point, I was growing ingredients, not necessarily specifically at the beginning, just by nature of like what we were doing on the garden. So started incorporating, like local, pie pumpkins that I was growing, into making like a pumpkin ale. And, then eventually, convinced the garden manager, I want to grow hops here. There's no hops growing in the garden. I want to grow barley, try malting my own barley,
that's so
like
cool.
that kind of stuff, So that just really started, taking shape to the point where like me and another kid, a friend who also ended up in a lifelong pursuit in the brewing industry, we tried, as I mentioned, it was a work college. Everybody on campus, you had to live on campus for the most part. Like 95% of the students lived on campus. It was our sort of like a year mission to convince the college to open up a brewery and pub on campus. So
that's
I was
awesome.
like struggling through schoolwork and spending literally all of my time trying to like pretend to write a business plan and convince like the board and everything to
This is a good idea.
Exactly. I was 21 at the time, like so at 20, like looking back at that,
That's incredible.
21-year-old kid trying to be like, listen, everybody who has money and power, let us open up a brewery on this campus.
Yeah.
That did not happen. It's still a shame. They should open up a brewery on that campus for educational reasons and for communal reasons. But so it all just really like, it consumed, beer in general consumed absolutely everything I was doing at that time.
That's a crazy process to see, because you, especially now being here at the Whippoorwill Farm location, I can see it's like you didn't realize, but like you were planting the seeds for the inspiration for what this is today. You're talking about like managing and growing your own products and brewing beer on a deck looking out, and it's like that's exactly what you have here. That's just beautiful.
Well, there was a pretty pivotal moment that really kind of like it almost altered what I was doing, because I didn't have an answer for it. But my agriculture, I don't know what it's called. She was like the main professor, so she was like my, gosh, what's the word? Yeah. Anyway, so like I had to like answer, like I would meet with her, and
like dean,
your guidance counselor.
Sort
of?
Something in between there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she just brought me in one day and was like, "What?" She was like, "Okay, do you have land in your family?" I was like, "I do not." She was like, "Are you wealthy?" I was like, "I am not." She was like, "What do you plan to do with an agriculture degree?" And I was like, it was like a really frustrating question, because it was like challenging, like what I had decided that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it was also like looking back on that, it was like, that's a very real question.
Yeah, it's being critical.
Yeah. And I had no idea or plan or anything to be like, this is what I'm going to do with an agriculture degree. So like the fact that like all of this ended up, happening is really interesting.
Yeah, it's so wild. So you're sitting in there going, that's a great question.
Totally. Yeah.
What were some of the next steps? Like, what did you do after you graduated? Did you have jobs? Like, what was next?
I went to Europe.
Even better.
Yeah.
That's what
when you get faced with life hard decisions, you go experience. You say, you know what, I can put a pin in this and come fucking back to it.
Totally. Yeah. Get at me later. Yeah.
All right, so you're in Europe, and you just what did you do?
Where'd you travel?
There's a lot of beer in Europe.
There is.
Yeah.
You don't
so
say.
Again, still just primarily obsessing over beer, traveling for beer, worked at a pub in London for a number of months to make money, keep traveling, to keep going to different, breweries and beer, specific, countries and regions and everything. So
was there a story that stood out to you that you were like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna come back to the States and
like a memory or spot in time where you're like, this is what I want to do?
I mean, I think even just working at a pub and having that connectivity with such strong, like, pub culture that I don't think, I mean, it exists here, but it's just so different. When you experience, especially, like, British pub culture and sort of those, we all talk about the bar as, like, the original social media and the gathering space, but like the pub specifically, was that. And so like, having those pretty intimate interactions with locals, with, people traveling, is just like, this is I hadn't had that experience yet. Again, I was still, 21 or whatever at that time, 22, so just very, pivotal experiences for sure.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's so wild. I've done a little bit of traveling, and I want to take him more, but it is very diverse and different, and I can see like the draw to it and wanting to like bring that back and have that like hospitality and community and closeness, especially with something as agriculture as well, and be able to produce something that you've grown and then be able to share it with others. It's pretty awesome.
For sure.
So, when did you start Fonta Flora? How was the idea spawned, and what did you do?
Fonta Flora got going in 2013. I had moved to Morganton, already our original location, which is very, very pubby. Is in downtown Morganton. So that was the original location, which we still operate. No beer is being brewed there, but still as like a pub and gathering space. So I moved to Morganton for a brewing job at a brewery that's now. Do they exist anymore?
as a brand, I
That's
guess.
a brand, maybe Catawba.
I've actually heard that.
They were
Yeah.
kind of like a cornerstone. They were well-known, respected brewery in Western North Carolina. And then some weird shit happened, and they sold to like an entity that owns like the New Orleans, like the Saints, and
Oh, okay,
anyways,
gotcha.
so that, like now it's just like a bunch of bullshit, and I don't
It's
even
just
know.
kind of a shell of what it was.
Yeah, for sure. So I moved to Morganton so that was first actual professional brewing gig, and then realized that the types of beers that I wanted to create, there were limitations working under someone else, and so found a way to branch out, and with 3 business partners, we founded Fonta Flora in 2013.
Amazing.
In downtown Morganton.
Yeah.
Amazing. I want to put a pause on this really quick because we're still on Jeremy's story where he's now in Austin with his partner, soon-to-be wife.
Okay.
Yep.
So your journey from Austin, what you did there, to then here at Fonta Flora.
Yeah, so like I said, we were already kind of moving around and continued to get us here. But in Austin, like I said, I was applying to every single brewery I possibly could, which at the time, I mean, Austin now is just crazy how many breweries there are. I think there were maybe like 20 or so at the time, and again, like 2012. First started at Jester King.
Okay, that's not a bad start.
Which again, now, I started there. I ended up working for their second anniversary party, so they were like a year and a half old when I started there. So
gotcha.
definitely, I didn't know what it was going to become, or it was kind of like getting there. But but that wasn't even like a full-time job. It was, more volunteering and like bartending and like helping out packaging, washing kegs, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Did that for about 6 months, and then to actually pay the bills was working at Edible Arrangements.
Okay, nice.
Delivering fruit.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that was the
one
the
feeds
thing.
the other.
Exactly,
It's okay.
for sure. I was like, I'll do this so I can get my foot in the door with beer somehow. And then we ended up.
As I say, as a bartender, that might be a good stick. Get somebody drunk and be like, you know what your girlfriend would really like is some edible
For sure.
to start loading up your sales.
Yeah.
Were you trying to get Jester King to do a fruited wild ale with
Exactly. With all the
edible
scraps.
arrangements?
Yeah.
Oh,
They
that-
should, man.
yeah.
There you go.
That would have been a great idea.
Yeah.
Since that still wasn't like a real job, just kept applying and got my first full-time job at Live Oak.
Oh, nice.
So worked there for about a year and a half, more keg washing, delivering, just anything I could possibly do. Worked my way up into the cellar and started learning all that kind of stuff.
Oh, amazing.
Transfers and all that kind of
Fuck
stuff.
yeah.
So that was great. And then did not want to leave Austin. I would for sure stayed there for who knows how long, honestly. It was, that was like such an incubator, again, that time, that place of like all the breweries coming up at the same time together,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
the community. Everybody was so close, you could just walk down the street and hit especially again now with how many there are, but everybody was home brewing. It was the time of beer dinners and tap takeovers and all that kind of stuff. So
Even if it
just
wasn't happening at a brewery, it's happening at a friend's
for sure,
house.
exactly. Yeah, bottle shares, all that. It was just like for
That's
my
special.
age and like friend group and everything. It was perfect. So I was in love with it. And then my wife at the same time was, like I said, trying to get into beer. She was still working in a nonprofit. She ended up getting a job in sales for New Belgium,
Okay, gotcha.
which moved her to Delaware, and I was very, very sad. I was like, first of all, not
From
wanting to leave
Austin to
Austin, but
I was about to say,
Delaware.
Delaware.
What are we
Damn.
gonna do? Yeah. So
the
we ended up-
food, the beer.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, we ended up moving
I
to.
love you, babe.
Yeah.
But not this.
Not Delaware much. So we moved to like as north in Delaware as you can possibly get, because I was like, all right, if I'm going to get a job at a brewery, it's probably going to be in Philly. So we were like right on the line. Did not get any jobs in Philly, and oddly enough, got a job at Dogfish Head.
Oh,
So
okay, gotcha.
we ended up after like 2 or 3 months moving to the other side of Delaware, which is like an hour and a half away, to the beach, and
Okay.
brewed at Dogfish Head for just under 3 years.
Gotcha. How long, really quick, how long
yeah.
had you been at Live Oak before then you got a dog?
Live Oak was about a year and a half.
Okay, gotcha. Damn, so your progression was really quick.
Yeah, I should like while I was at Live Oak again, I just like wanted to kind of get to see where I could get, essentially.
Yeah.
So I was doing an online course with the Institute of Brewing and Distilling at the same time. I just remember
gotcha.
some of my Live Oak friends that I'm still really close with just still make fun of me. I was like washing kegs while reading books and like taking practice tests at the same time, just like, same as Todd, like beer. What can how can I keep going, you know? So yeah, I mean, without the Institute of Brewing and Distilling degree, Dogfish wouldn't have hired me, certainly. So it was definitely like a good combo at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, being at Dogfish I started like probably halfway into working there, or maybe like starting to develop when I started there, just like obsessing about mixed culture beer. So yeah, me and two other guys kind of started the sour program there, and it was just like barrel work after barrel work. I still you had to do a little bit of everything. So I had a weird feel. I honestly loved it there, and like I was given enough kind of freedom to like, you know, I did a lot of R&D batches and a lot of stuff like that, like brewing at the original pub, which was really awesome and learned so much. But it was a weird combo of like, well, I don't want to brew 60-minute all the fucking time, and I want to do this barrel stuff. So that was when Todd posted when going from a company of one person to needing someone that had like bigger brewery experience. It was like perfect timing. Next step.
Gotcha.
Here.
What year was that?
That was 2017.
2017?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I was at Dogfish 2014 to 2017.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, moved out here.
And then you had opened in 2013.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was just you and 3 partners. Were you the only one brewing?
Yep.
Him and 2 partners. I think there's 3 total.
There
Okay.
was 4. Yes.
Oh, there's 4
so
total. My
3.
fault.
Okay.
My fault.
Yeah. Okay. Were they helping you brew it all, or were you just brewing and they were just partners to help to get business going?
Yep, they were. Yeah, just they were. I was the only active
Employee.
the only active partner.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
That's a lot to take on.
it was tremendous. Yeah.
Good thing you were in your 20s.
You know, and you don't care about your back or anything when you're in your 20s.
This will buff out later.
Yeah, totally.
There's no HR breathing
No.
down your neck.
Oh gosh, yeah. It was, but it was also designed to be, our original system, was a 3.5 barrel brew house with 4 7-barrel tanks, so also wildly manageable for, I say that within reason, wildly manageable, to handle all of that, especially in a small kind of sleepy town like Morganton.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really know what to expect, it was just 2 of my business partners they have their parents are from the UK, so we kind of connected over that pub culture that, that
awesome.
I referenced also. And so that was their whole goal, was to have, a pub like, an English pub like gathering space in downtown Morganton. And then, so we connected over that, and, didn't really have many expectations outside of like, what would this, sort of become, and so it was, like Jeremy said, it was me doing all, brewing operations, delivering, any leftover beer, that wasn't being sold, through direct to consumer in the tasting room. And, we started with, there are beers today that we brew, that were some of the, recipes have been tweaked, of course, but, some of our, original beers are still brewed to this day. And, so we've always brewed, clean styles of beer. We just, the only time people would get them was, actually going to, the location, to the pub. But then it was the mixed culture stuff that once we started bottling that up, that really kind of got us, kind of put us on the map and got us a little bit of attention for brewing those styles of beers.
Yeah, for
Gotcha.
sure.
Was there one that it felt like that's where you had recognition or it hit it? Was there a certain style that, whether it was an award or?
There was a pivotal moment. The very first Shelton Fest that we were invited to. These were those are dreams. That was, I still remember, where I was when, got invited to that first Shelton Fest. The first one that we did was in
What
St.
is Shelton
Pete.
Fest?
Shelton Fest is a now defunct beer festival that was hosted by the Shelton Brothers,
Okay.
also a defunct,
Distribution arm,
distribution importer, which is, the Shelton Brothers portfolio was responsible for literally like anybody drinking anything from Europe that was available in the United States was because of the Shelton Brothers and what that importer and that portfolio was bringing into this country.
Yeah.
So not only but then it transformed. Shelton Brothers transformed into not only European but then worldwide, and then including America. So then breweries from all over the country kind of moving their beer around through the Shelton Brothers portfolio. And if you were part of the Shelton Brothers portfolio, like that was big time.
Yeah.
And that was important, and you felt important. So to be included, we were tiny. We didn't have beer to move around, but word had gotten. I think it was from a recommendation from Jeff at Jester King. We had become friends with them, to recommended that we get included to the that Shelton Brothers Festival in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Oh, amazing.
And we poured. I remember we brought everything with us, literally like every
as
beer,
one would,
that we could, to show off what we were doing. And Rhythm Rug beer that we still make to this day, a wild ale with local fresh strawberries when they're in season. I just remember, it was like transformed what people thought could be possible with strawberries in particular. So that beer was really like, everyone was like, how the fuck do you make this beer? And,
And we still get that question.
It's how
so
it gets
funny.
done.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so incredible. Do you remember, like the first day opening? Actually, I want to go back. How did y'all come up with the name Fonta Flora?
Great question. One of my business partners suggested it, naming. Jeremy has a child, so it's just like I always thought about it as like, how do you choose a name for a human before they even have like a personality or anything? And then does that human like gain personality like from the name, or like how does this all like take place? And so that's how I always felt about a brewery. I was like, how the hell am I supposed to name this thing that we're then like stuck with for forever,
that you're still shaping and will forever be shaping?
Totally. And so that was a daunting task to think about, and one of my business partners suggested Fonta Flora, and for obvious reasons, immediately loved the name. The alliteration's beautiful, Latin's beautiful. Even the flora aspect, I think, still does such a great job of embodying what it is that we do and we strive to create here. But then to take it deeper for us, it's a regionally specific connection. Fonta Flora was a sharecropping community that existed on the banks of the Linville River, the Linville Gorge.
Oh, interesting.
Is, you can see from our property, deepest gorge this side of the Mississippi. So the Linville River cuts through it.
Oh, nice. It's tied to the land. That's amazing.
So the river was dammed in the early 1900s to create Lake James, which is also right here. And by doing so, subsequently flooded the town of Fonta Flora, which is why we don't use the imagery so much anymore, but our original branding was the waves and then buildings underneath representing the sunken town of Fonta Flora.
Wow.
That's wild. That's insane.
Yep.
I love that. We love hearing the history behind. I think, like you said, names are like, it's such an incredible piece of not only branding, but also like how you distribute not only your beer, but just like your livelihood and your beliefs. Totally. I think as like an owner or as a like head brewer, different things like that. So like the name is such an incredible piece of that. So that's so wild that it happens more often than you think that it's a piece of land or history. I think we've heard that
being
a
tied
lot.
to it. Yeah. People enjoy a business with like a depth of history to it. I think we've gone through an era and phase from like the early thousands to now where it was like a lot of copy and paste businesses. And now people want depth to like what they're
Yeah.
buying, and that's important.
Well, with so many, I mean, we talk about this all the time. I think our largest strength and then actually largest, sort of weakness is the storytelling. We have the ability to tell, I think, quite an incredible story, but it's like, how do you actually do it? And so I think with how many breweries there are and how many options and how many now non-beer and like just everything out there competing with what we're doing. I mean, I just think without a story, what are you?
Right. Yeah, no, for sure.
100%.
Again, we've interviewed a few places, and it does tie back. The one that like leans out to me, we interviewed Kushnock up in Augusta, Maine, and that's like it's 100% tied to that river that runs through, and I
think the Native Americans call it Kusinok, and it meant like a head of tide or head of river.
And that's like where
And it was like one of the first towns. Actually, there's a town built on like both sides
and the
of
fort
the
was there.
river. Yeah,
It was like the head of tide.
yeah.
So it's the same. Like it's very much driven by the agriculture and the geography that's around where you're at. So it's very cool.
That's
I love
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right, so this beautiful merriment then between you coming from Dogfish Head and then landing here at Fonta Flora. Tell us what that experience was like.
Yeah, it was, I think, for both of us, kind of weird and scary in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, I was...
This is 27.
Agreed, yeah.
2017.
Yeah, 2017, again, I mean, Todd, he can speak on that more, just about hiring, someone he did not know whatsoever to not take over, but to join his baby, or take it to the next level, whatever. Because again, I mean, we're both tall guys, and like I don't know, you guys said that you went to the pub before.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a brewing system depending when you guys went, but it was a tiny place. So like having the two of us kind of like stepping on each other, but I was
Two
coming
giants.
from a huge, I wanted to go to a
little giant.
Coming from Dogfish, I wanted to be in a small brewery. That was the whole idea, But yeah, Todd, even to this day, he's like, "Why did you stay?" Because they were just like at the time, it was so much like, on both ends, it was a learning curve, but like in the best possible way. Honestly, I think I was like every hurdle or whatever it could have been. I was like, this is what I signed up for. This is like what I'm looking for. So
was this your first brewing employee that you'd hired since you'd opened? So like. I'm imagining those first 4 years. Was it just you solo in the brewery?
Essentially,
gotcha.
there was from time to time very part-time, folks kind of
people come
helping out.
Yeah.
So, and then it's and I'm better about this today, but like and mostly because of Jeremy and like seeing what he excels at, especially in terms of like organization and trying to like do a better job of keeping track of things. I mean, when it was just me, I knew everything that was going on. I knew what ingredients I needed to order. I knew the tasks that I had to complete. I knew the brewing schedule, and the brewing schedule was a lot easier then because it was just like, well, we're brewed this West Coast IPA. It's going, it's moving really fast in the pub. Should probably get another West Coast IPA in the tank. So it was just a lot easier of a system, but then for Jeremy coming in and then also not knowing at the time, like someone who thrives on like structure, organization, like I was a mess. And then also with that type of stuff stresses me out, to then also have to think of like, okay, I have this huge task list that I have to do, but I also have to try to like communicate and like get all of this stuff off of my plate onto Jeremy. And so luckily Jeremy was just like really great at like, I will run.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Noted. Going.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why, he and I have been able to work so well together for so long is because we're very much the yin and yang. Like our personalities are similar and, we're super tight personally. But I think like work-wise, brain-wise, like so opposite.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a creative bone in my body, honestly, and it's all his.
Not entirely true.
Not many, but it's all like his ideas, and then I'll just take it and make it happen. So it works out well.
Nice.
You can see it, like the dynamic, and I think that's just like it's so great. I think it could be hard in an industry like this to be able to something that you've started to be able to like have someone come in and help. But honestly, having people come in and support, like you can see how it's created so much more. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming you came on, things started to pick up, take off. And what happened after you came on? Like, y'all had the one location, it was just you. What were the next few steps? Like, y'all now have this location. What did that look like for those next few years?
Well, yeah, and that was the sort of impetus of looking for the right person to help lead what Fonta Flora's next step was going to be. And to be honest, we've always been pretty bad at having that like long vision, that long plan. We're getting better at it now, but like even when bringing Jeremy on, you know, it's just like, yeah, we had the farm was already in the works. We purchased this land in 2016, you know, and it was built upon a lot of early successes that we were finding in Morganton. You know, what we coined as, you know, the Appalachian Wild Ale. You know, I mean, for our bottle releases, you know, we'd see, you know, 200 plus people wrapped around the block in tiny downtown Morganton. So we were like, fuck yeah. Like we're doing something right.
Doing something
Hell
right.
yeah.
Let's grow.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, but you know, we knew that we wanted more than just what the pub had to offer and what a 3.5 barrel brewing system
Right.
could offer. You know, so the expansion idea was certainly to grow. But we didn't have like a set barrelage in mind. We didn't know exactly what our approach to the market was going to be. We just saw the success that we had, and we just quite literally thought like, all this beer is going to sell itself, which was sort of partially true at first, and you know now the market is just so vastly different and has new challenges. But going back to that, so land, we were able to acquire this farm, which is known as Whippoorwill Farm, in 2016. It was a really long, drawn-out process of getting this land permitted and actually like the okay, you know, from the variety of different things that need to take place. I mean, this was barren land. I mean, we had to drill wells. All the water that we use comes from wells that we drilled. There was no city water here. There's no like piped natural gas. We have buried propane tanks, you know, that we pull from. So there was a lot of considerations and a lot of stuff that had to really fall in order to make this a reality.
Can I ask how y'all found the land? Because this is always a bit from things.
Yeah. Your papa and Bama, even though they're not alcohol drinkers, would be stoked to know that we're recording a podcast studio in a milk parlor.
That's right.
Because her papa ran cattle for a long time in New Mexico.
It wasn't for milk.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Like, how did y'all find this land?
It was always a piece of property that, you know, I think everyone knew about. You know, this is Highway 126 here that runs past the farm is a really
busy. We noticed it was busy.
Busy, and it's still is a very popular road cycling route. So I mean, you know, even now in the wintertime, but especially as the weather changes, you know, you'll just see, you know, tons of cyclists all the time. So I would cycle out this way all the time from downtown Morganton, and it would take me always past this farm. And one day there was a for sale sign on it, and just really started kind of poking and prodding, like, what could this look like? And, you know, I say this a lot, but like truly with my business partners, you know, are very, you know, they all have MBAs, very like, you know, wildly different, couldn't be more different from how I operate. The fact that I was able to convince 3 people who have brains like that building a brewery in the middle of nowhere was a good idea.
Like a good business plan.
I don't know quite how this all happened. I don't think could be recreated. It was a very time and a place thing. Right. Obviously, today's craft beer climate, you know, it's hard pressed to convince anybody to do anything with beer. But, you know, so to build a brewery in the middle of nowhere, it was quite the suggestion.
But you'd already prepped for that. You tried to get your school to do, so you were already prepped.
They definitely do your hard work in your background.
Yeah.
They were like,
For
if there's
sure.
one person that can do this, it's probably going to be this motherfucker.
Well, then, to even add more to this, so when we actually did, finally decide to do this was a dry county out here.
No way. Are you joking?
So not only
This
all
was a
of
dry
those things,
county?
yeah. So we were able to produce. We could produce beer. We just wouldn't have been able to conduct retail sales. Morganton is in Burke County, but city ordinance passed years ago to make the city wet. So even at time of when Jeremy and I brewed the first batch of beer here, it was illegal for us to sell a pint of beer across the bar. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's
So-
insane. 2018 probably at that point.
Yeah.
It probably took you some
Yeah, it
time to get it built.
2018 when it passed.
2018?
Damn. That's crazy to have everybody there and be like, hey, we did it. And they'd be like, can't sell it.
Can't give you a beer though. Yeah. So we brewed our first batch of beer here Christmas Eve 2017, and the county did not go wet until I think it must have been like spring of 2018.
Oh, damn, that's some time.
Yeah.
Damn, okay.
But not too much time. It could have been longer.
But still, for new
Yeah.
location,
New
every
location.
month counts.
For
so,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Did you know, was it in the works of becoming a wet county before? Did you know?
Yeah, had there been advocation?
We had sort of, I wouldn't say like if we can go back, Jeremy's in the FBI, remember?
Oh, right.
Really, this is starting the legal
right.
brewer
Yeah,
over
totally.
here.
Yep.
Jeremy
Right,
had
right.
that intel. No, we did have, I think, again, being a small town and, friends on, city council and everything, we knew that this was an issue, a topic that was coming up for a decision surrounding,
Okay.
and that there was a lot of talk surrounding the county going wet. But no,
Okay.
no guarantees,
No guarantees.
True. Like having some
Yeah.
momentum doesn't mean that's going to happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah.
All right. So and then this is, so now you guys you're brewing beer.
Yep.
This wet county passes. So then what? So I will say, maybe from our perspective, Fonta Flora, to us is huge. I don't know the
Yeah.
amount of barrel age, but it's like very widely well known. Plenty of accolades and awards, highly well spoken and reputable. So what was that for both of you? What was that transition like, or was there a moment where you realized it's kind of like, oh, like that's who we are now?
I think that's who we are now, kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. Since 2017, the 7.5 years from when we started brewing here. Now we're transitioning a little bit to be like a brewery, like, oh, we have flagships and actual seasonal beers. But back then it was really, as Todd said, we have a couple beers like Hop Beard, West Coast IPA, now called Mimosa City, which has changed names many times. Like there's a few that have been around since day one, but yeah, brewing here the first 2, 3, 4 years, it was just like, what do we want to brew this week? Cool. Throw it on the schedule. It was very much like the Fonta Flora ethos of like, what is local, what's fresh, what's ready right now.
Oh, that's so much
just
fun.
like throwing up whatever.
Yeah.
Other
Every
than-
brewer's dream, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now we're getting, again, to that point of like scaling production on like, let's be more intentional about a couple brands kind of thing, And we've been doing that for the last 2, 3 years or so, being more intentional. But it was more so, as I was saying to you guys in the tasting room earlier, like what brought me here was the sour beer. We still, I think I don't even know if lucky is the right word anymore, but I'll say for now, we're lucky that our sour program has not changed. We've seen so many people that have downgraded or closed it entirely.
Yeah.
We haven't necessarily grown ours, but we've been able to do like what is so specific to us, including spontaneous beer, which we brought on. This was our 6th season.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, and that's been a ton of fun. So we still do so much like of what makes us Fonta Flora. As I was telling you guys too, maple bark water.
I know. I can't wait
love
to
it.
try it.
Yeah, we do all
So
the
good.
weird shit. It's still, even for being a bigger brewery, we still forage, we still hand process everything. We still,
Oh, that's so awesome.
It's all what we stick to what we've, I probably wouldn't be here otherwise. So
It's also
that's what we're
like,
trying to do.
I wouldn't either.
It's
Yeah.
it's that process of the process, but it's very time intensive. At Freem, anytime that we did a lot of like our Boss Besson, our Creek or whatnot, Frambozen, like when we get those fruits, it's always exciting to do it, but then when you do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds,
Oh, yeah.
there is like an appreciation to be like, okay, the people that do this big and do it well, yeah, after about 600 peach pits that your palm, you put duct tape on your palm so your palm doesn't get cut or blistered from cracking them open. Again, it's all that connection, but super appreciative.
Well, it's funny now. The meeting we just came out of, we were talking about our summer lager, Lake James Lime, which is with like hand zested real limes. Yeah. And back to Todd talking about rhythm rug with strawberries, of like that being a question we still get a lot. Yeah. I can't tell you how many festivals, events, whatever, I get the question like, how do you make it taste like this?
So much work.
It's limes. It's
limes.
Not extract. It's not shitty artificial flavoring.
No.
Like we
It's
use
real.
The physical fruit.
And we're doing that in 60 barrel batches multiple times a year.
Yeah.
And these guys back here are all hand processing, hand zesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hopefully you'll
nobody's
have like
happy
a
with it, but
drill that you'll like.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we do that. Yeah.
Okay, that's
yeah.
what
We got one of those.
I was like,
Yeah.
I hope y'all do that at least.
But that's a part
Still
about the
hand
quality.
processing,
For
but
sure.
still.
100%.
That's a part about like
Quicker.
any good, whether it's like leather, like any good quality stuff that somebody wants to pay, like Filson, like a lot of their jackets are like $400, $500, and they still stitch it the same damn way that they did, 100 years ago, and it's like that's the difference.
And that's, we're not, I don't think that we are everybody's brewery and never will be because of that, because of all, whether it's the ingredients or the labor behind it. Like our beer is at a higher price point, but that's why, same as Filson.
Yeah.
Like Filson will never be the close for everybody.
Yep.
Because a lot of people don't know the story, they don't care about the story.
Yep.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
It's so
Beautiful.
good. Okay, so for here on the land, how do y'all utilize land to then make and process all your ingredients and then make the beer?
Yeah, I think even a few things there. This is obviously having our own farm is really dreamy and allows us to like fully realize what our mission. Our part of our mission is to create beer with a sense of place and agricultural purpose. That said, it always has been our mission, even when we were in downtown Morganton without a farm. Everything that we were purchasing, always from day one supporting and buying from local malt houses, and then other ingredients from local farms. So that idea, like we were just as much of a farmhouse brewery when we were located in downtown Morganton. From the ingredient perspective as we are right now. More so now because we are on a farm,
right.
But and we grow our own ingredients.
Right.
But and so then fast forward to this place, the land has such a there's just so many layers to what this place represents. So part of the purchase, when we ended up acquiring this land, we partnered with a local conservancy to help us buy the large tract that was for sale. It was right around 60 acres. We couldn't, we didn't have a use for that much land, nor could we afford that much land. So we actually partnered with the conservancy. They took a portion, we kept the rest. They donated their portion immediately to Lake James State Park, which the entrance and headquarters is just down the road from us.
Oh, nice.
So kind of looking out in the field, everything past like the front tree line, I know your listeners won't be able to see this, but is all Lake James State Park land. So we're kind of buffered, by the beautiful state park.
That's awesome.
And then our land by that purchase was also put under permanent conservation from the partnership with the Conservancy.
Okay.
So we have a lot of really cool, just land specific, things that we have to adhere to, which is, great for the environment to have those in place. And then in terms of what we do, here we have a large annual garden.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to what I was saying about, kind of the sustainable agriculture component, the kind of first goal of mine with the annual garden is to tend to the soil, work on building that through cover crops and crop rotation and things like that, leaving land fallow, not always harvesting year after year, not only growing, corn year after year and then spraying with a ton of pesticides and herbicides and synthetic fertilizers, all that stuff. rooted in sustainable agricultural practices, regenerative agricultural practices. The garden represents a few things. I mean, it represents, education for us. We want our customers, to be able to see at any given time, over the years, you could see, heritage, red turkey, wheat out in the field. You could see seashore black rye growing, meanwhile these ingredients are, prolific in things that we talk about, in the beers that we make, so really trying to draw the idea of agriculture. Sorry, I'm going to rant for
No,
No,
go
that's
for
totally
it.
fine.
That's
We
what we
love
want. Yeah.
like wineries still historically most commonly are on a farm. Urban wineries now, obviously, but beer industrialization just became synonymous with city living and removed from the farm. A century ago. So I think a goal is bringing agriculture back into beer has been a lifelong an adult long quest anyways. And so I think that's what this place provides as an opportunity to show like this is what this ingredient looks like and this is how we use it in beer. So that's part of it. So we grow a number of ingredients that end up getting used in beer. Jeremy and I discuss what ingredients we might want to grow each season, and then we just kind of take it from there with the annual garden. So we'll put ingredients in beer in our small little kitchen, sometimes for sale. Like tomatoes or peppers or whatever out of the tasting room.
That's awesome.
So the experience can kind of vary depending on what we're actually growing for the customer. We have a pawpaw orchard. Pawpaw is North America's largest native tropical fruit. Kind of tastes like a banana, met a pineapple, met a mango kind of thing.
Interesting. We
Really
learned about
incredible
pawpaw
fruit.
cider from Botanist and Barrel.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So he's talking about that.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have 75 trees in the ground in our
amazing.
in our pawpaw orchard. Hoping to grow that to about 100 is the kind of area that I have earmarked for that. We're getting ready to plant 50 Cascade hops plants in the ground this spring.
Awesome.
Don't know how we've managed this long without growing any
Growing
hops,
any
but that'll
Is
finally
it
happen.
good? And is the climate in this area good for hops?
It's no Washington State.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you
It'll
can't
I,
have,
I would say
yeah,
it's
it'll be fine.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's good. It's just variable.
Yeah.
I love
Cascade is the hop that is like,
Right.
you can grow Cascade here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it will
cool.
do.
It
and
grows in ditches on the side of the freeway.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I mean, like,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not that.
No, it's not a
knowledgeable
knock on
about
you.
Where you can grow hops, and
It just
I
is-
do
the-
know
the-
Washington is great,
The answer to you is that it's not great for growing hops here. Yeah.
but you can grow it and
Yeah.
you can use it.
Is that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
due to the humidity? I assume the humidity and heat.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured
yeah.
that
Yeah, both of
much,
those things is
at
brutal.
least.
Yeah.
Brutal on the hops.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
now it's been getting hotter in Washington, but we don't have the humidity, which just absolutely
Yes.
causes bacterial infection, bugs to be rampant. I just really quick tie this back because when you were talking about the reason why you grow products on here, it really hit home for me because when we talked about sharing stories, this was during COVID, and this was even before like we were building out our van. We had no concept of like doing this podcast, but we were watching Chef's Table. And on Chef's Table, where they pick, a chef, usually in a different state, and usually those chefs have deep ties to the lands, whether they grew up there or they just gave the importance of like, this is what will be gone if we don't care about it.
Yep.
And we both were like, fuck, this is so important because it is like there's a part of human history where everything's always going to change. Time's always going to move forward. And when you miss those things, whether you grew up on or things that used to be around, there's like a deep sense of sadness about it. And it's like,
Yep.
we have opportunities to keep those things here.
Yeah.
And so like hearing part of that ethos for Fonta Flora, I think is so great. And it's so amazing because even if you don't have enough to use for all of your production, you can still educate and show people, or some people might know and be like, yeah, that's a specific type of wheat that grows here. And it's only to this nature. It's only to this plot of land. And like to me, that importance of place is just like, and again, in a world that's so fast and changing, everything comes in 30-second bits.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
Props
Agreed.
to y'all and everybody here. That's just incredible.
It is
Appreciate
cool
that.
to like come out and like I think slow down. I think is the biggest thing. Like we're always on the go, but I know other people are too. So to be able to come out, how often do you get to sit on a farm? I mean, we don't. So like
that is the best way to drink a beer.
Yeah.
That is like the best way to unwind. It's not like city blocks. It's not an inside
Right.
anything. You can sit outside. It's like
sit, and then you get to look out to see maybe the wheat or other things that are being grown out here, and feel like it, and knowing like the water is from underneath where you're from, like where you're sitting at. Like that is such a cool experience that not a lot of people get to do, and
It's
there's
special.
not a lot of breweries, like you said, get to have and get to bring people to come and say, enjoy our beer that we've made from this land in this area. You get to continue to support this area and this community, and it's beautiful.
Full circle
Totally.
experience.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And you wanted to do it so long ago. You wanted to sit on that front porch of your community college and brew beer and have people drink it as well. So
Totally.
now you have your own.
Yeah.
You have your own. You have your own quote unquote beer college.
yeah.
You get to educate people or have conversations, as Leonard would say.
Yep.
Have conversations with people of these are the things we're doing. These are the things we're growing. These are the crops. These are the things that are impacting what we're able to make this year. I'm sure that's a huge thing. Like, I can't imagine being like, okay, we're going to grow this crop, and then maybe something changes, and you'll have to adjust y'all's recipes for it, or there's so
For
many
sure.
variables. I'm sure that y'all have to pivot a lot. So
Yeah, every year. I mean, this year, Jeremy's been trying, his ass off to our original source where we buy raspberries from was decimated in the hurricane. And then we've been pivoting ever since, trying to find local raspberries. And for us, the answer is not, calling Oregon Fruit Products and ordering, raspberry puree to make the beer that we want to make. It's all or nothing from that standpoint. So the vintage of whatever it was going to be, whether Razzmatazz is a raspberry beer that we do historically, or
Gorgeous.
Framboise, like whatever. It's like that's just that story is that it's just not happening this year because of raspberry crop failure.
right.
Yeah. And even if it was happening, I mean, it's funny that both of us were beer as we, started talking about this, but how much it is in our minds related to cooking. I mean, Chef's Table is huge for both of us.
Yeah.
And so much of what we do is similar to wineries with like terroir, I mean, like even peaches or strawberries as a good example is like we've been able to get those fruits every single year, but the beer is different because the terroir and the climate and the season is different year to year. So like we sometimes get, I don't know if that's like criticism, but like, oh, this Funk Fuzz is our peach beer. Doesn't taste like last year's Funk Fuzz. It's like, well, that's because
It's not supposed to.
a different
peaches
batch.
are different,
Yeah,
and
totally.
we're not trying to mimic last
Yeah.
year's. It's a vintage, and
Yes.
We kind
it
of see
makes it
that as a
different thing.
compliment.
You were
We're
like,
we're like,
amazing.
thank
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, granted, IPAs are very different. We're trying to
Yes,
make our IPAs the
100%.
exact same
No,
every time,
yeah.
but that's the fun part to us, It's like
Absolutely.
the
I love
art
it
side
so
of it and the more logistical like spec side.
Yeah.
That is the interesting struggle, I think, because like I feel like I talk like out of two sides there. With like some beers, I'm just like, no, we want the subtle nuance change year to year, but then like IPAs, West Coast IPA, we're just like, no, we need this to be the same every
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah,
It makes
and also
sense for
beer
sure.
drinkers, that the demographic has changed. I mean, you can literally see like a lot. I mean, brewing in Portland, Oregon, a lot. We use a lot of lily, just like it's the same three hops. It's Amarillo, Mosaic, and Simcoe. That's what we use, like in the boil, in the dry hop, and people always talk about. And the beer can change with other different ingredients, but they're like, yeah, this beer is just so different. I'm like, how can it be so different though when every brewery, like 50 plus breweries, are using the same boil and dry hopping schedule? Like,
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's interesting. But speaking about ingredients, are there any ingredients you guys are excited to use this year or have planned this year for like maybe new beers or coming into current beers?
Yeah, I think again, just on both sides of the spectrum for us, we are like Todd was saying, we're pivoting because we were lucky enough with Helene, the hurricane, but our fruit side of things is definitely changing. So just trying to figure out like last year, plums. I feel like for us is always one that we love plums, but like for whatever reason, the consumer doesn't as much. So we take like years off in
Don't
between.
love plums.
It's a shame.
I
It's
know,
a
it's a
shame.
shame.
I love plums.
It brings a
Love
great
plums,
color
right?
and
Yeah.
a great
He loves
flavor.
plums.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that for me, I'm excited to mess with plums again. And
Gotcha.
aside from our Appalachian Wild Ale series, is like our fruited mixed culture program that we've been doing for years. But now that we've been, like I was saying, with our spontaneous program in terms of how many seasons we've been brewing, we've been releasing those beers for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we also, as you were mentioning, like we have a Framboise, a Creek, Vermentino. We have one with white
nice.
grapes. So those are. It's been fun experimenting with some of the same fruits, but like in a different capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, on the clean side of things, I mean, that's where I've been putting a lot of my focus in is like with West Coast IPAs, both from like different hops, I mean, nowadays it's hard to keep up with like hop extracts and like all the different techniques that are
Yeah.
out there now.
Yeah.
We talked about hop products are like in a
Yeah.
nuclear arms race. Every single year it just gets
know.
more and more crazy.
It's wild.
And then you see it like even on beer descriptions. This is no knock to any brewery that does it, but now it's not just cryo hops. It'll be like CO2 extracted cryo hop gas. That is like, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
We thought it was crazy when it was
Futuristic.
weed, and now
Yeah.
here it is.
For
over
sure.
here.
Yeah, we're trying to like balance what, again, for the consumer, like what people care about and what like, we've had that before. Like this is T90 Citra and Cryo Citra and whatever. It's like, we could just put Citra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people don't really care what,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
you got the Citra in there.
Yeah.
Boosted, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boosted,
Boosted.
whatever it is. Yeah.
I love that so much. Okay, so for this next year, like obviously in the area, y'all have had a certain thing that happened a few months ago. And like, how have y'all been able to support some of the local breweries and the local economy trying to help boost back up? Because I know y'all are semi-affected, but not super affected. What are some of the things that y'all have been trying to do to kind of help not only your community, but also the beer community in itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, kind of first and foremost, we sort of feel like we're on, it's like the airplane kind of situation where we're trying to put like, our own oxygen mask on,
Right.
before, being able to like fully understand what it means to like put, give oxygen to others.
Right.
And we're in, we're in a strange place because we weren't physically damage from the farm, but the market that we rely, like at our production facility or any of our locations, but the market that we rely on for commerce is
Right.
has been deeply affected.
Right.
So our business, aside from the physical side not being affected, we've been crushed by what the hurricane brought to Western North Carolina. It certainly comes from a lucky place to be saying that is all we're dealing with, but we're trying to wrap our heads around what it means to have a sustainable business in 2025 when some major markets for us have been totally altered.
Right.
Yeah.
So then aside from that, early on, we were hosting like clothing drives and,
Right.
especially like as the weather started getting colder, bringing in, coat drives and everything to get, gear and camping gear and, jackets up to the mountains. Folks were coming down here. We were filling up with our well water
Well
to
water,
get,
yeah.
distributed in Western North Carolina. We partnered with Zillicoa we brew a number of beers with them each year, but one in particular, had an event for them and tried to, scoot some money their way from that event. So
Oh, that's awesome.
it's just
They're
like
great people,
little
too.
bits here, and they
Yeah.
are. They certainly are.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm sure like
A lot of this community is, but yeah,
Right.
we got to meet them personally. They're awesome people.
Yeah, I think for us, we were here for a while and then we left, and then like we've been away for a few months, and like coming back and being able to really understand and see like what the community is like, not only for the beer community, but actually just the community. Like how are people, moving on, and how are they getting back on their feet, and how are they, dealing with the different things that have interrupted their lives, and the businesses that have, slowed down or stopped or are trying to pick back up. And
Yeah.
I think for us, like, we really hope that, like, with the spring and the sun coming out and, like, the thaw of the winter, that things can continue to produce and move forward, and we just
Yeah, we'll bring more people. I mean, the community is what has kept cities like Asheville, but even other small towns.
Yeah.
The state's had a hard time with it.
Yeah.
Federal government has had a hard time with it, and I think that's being fair and nice to say that. But that really is. It's like the community has kept most of these people alive, and so now a lot of them are just saying like, "Hey, we know it doesn't look the same, but please come." Like,
I think that was
it's
our
still
biggest
serviceable.
thing.
Like Linden was like, people come here. Like, weather's getting nice, come out, fucking mountain bike, tourists spend money.
I think that was
drink
our
beer.
thing. Is like we want, like now that spring is coming, it's like we want to make sure that people know that it's like you can come back to Asheville.
Yeah.
Like Asheville's
It's
still
not-
here.
it's not a war
in the
zone.
area.
Yeah.
Like come and support and like because it is such a beer centric place. Like all the people who are coming from the East Coast, West Coast, even from the South and Midwest, like come spend your spring break here. Like spring break is coming up. Like come and like hang out and like support the community that you haven't maybe been able to support.
You might have to bring your own river raft too, but that's
for sure.
Or maybe no river rafting and just some like walking around and eating some good food and drinking some good beer for sure. So I'm sure.
Well, we need.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, because we're, as Todd was saying, I mean, in terms of like where we sell our beer, but even, I mean, so much of since we are a destination, so much of our clientele comes here on their weekends from Asheville.
Yeah.
And even though our space wasn't physically affected, the people that come here from Asheville, they don't want to be spending money.
No,
So it's like everybody's just been like, I don't know, the storm either, depending how you look at it, happened at the best time or the worst time. I mean, being in the fall is when so many people here depended on tourism and things like that. But at the same time, it's been like, people have been able to kind of reset over the winter. So same as you were saying, I mean, now warmer temps, like we're ready.
No,
Let's
like
go.
kind of get back to normal life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Hell yeah.
So we did our podcast on Friday with Botanist and Barrel, and we were like, sun's out, like everyone come on, like it's a great time. It's spring is coming, like
Yeah, this comes from the East Coast with like 35 degrees, but the wind makes it feel like 10.
Yeah. We're like, it's snowing, come on
Like
down.
it's practically summer.
It's sunny out here.
And we're seeing it too. I mean, when the weather is nice, I mean, people are definitely itching.
They do.
To
get out.
They crave it. I think it is. It's like there can only be so much bad shit happening in the world. You're like, I have to do something that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
can't just keep doing the same one.
For sure.
All right, so you want me to get last because we're at an
I
hour
know,
20,
I
so let's
know.
ask our
Okay,
last two questions.
We have the last two questions.
We could talk forever, but
I know.
Yeah.
It's always hard to like, we want to like keep on talking, but it's like, anyways. Okay, last two questions. So the first one, if you were to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? We do ask this to everybody. It's been a question that we have asked even before the podcast.
That's the first time you've said it, and you've not kind
Not
of like
messed it up.
stumbled it up.
I always mess it up.
For like 46 episodes, she's like, fuck.
I always mess it up. But we've asked this question even before we started the
for
podcast.
years.
So we have a list of like people across the world that we've like asked this question to. So we love asking it at the podcast.
Cool. Yeah, because I guess you didn't even say whether that's personal or beer industry related.
No, whatever you
I
want.
guess whatever you want. Yeah.
Well, no, I
Open
think
to interpretation.
both. Either whether beer or personally, I think I've been trying to do this more of think more long term instead of short term. I've always been, I think, again, both sides, professionally, personally, more like angsty and just thinking about like the immediate. I mean, beer-wise specific, Todd and I, for years and years and years, we're like, we're never making a hazy IPA.
You took mine.
And I think it's like in hindsight, both of us were just like, I mean, not little kids, but in a way like angsty little kids. Like, and the more people asked for hazy IPAs, the more we didn't want to do it. And now it's just like, why the fuck were we doing that? So it's just like,
You can make it in your own way. I think that's the
and that's what we
beautiful
do
thing.
now. I mean,
Yeah.
we make hazy IPA, but with local grain
Make
and
it with
like
your own way.
our
You
own-
have your
our own
laurels
thing.
and values.
Yeah.
Like, those are intact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of a good way to say it. Of like, find a balance between the two.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think even just you talk about again which turn you take and whatever. But if I mean, as one example about like the the hazy IPA stuff. I mean, like Henry and Adriana from Monkish, visiting the pub and brewing, with us back in like 2016 or something like that, 2016, 2017. And like Henry just being like, let's make hazy IPA. together. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. So it's just like, what would that trajectory have looked like for Fonta Flora if it would have been like, fuck it, let's do it. Let's make hazy double IPA right now. In tiny downtown Morganton. So it's like those are obviously those what if questions are like, bizarre to think about. But we did go down the path that we went down, and I personally wouldn't have changed it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
More than just fine.
Yeah, I think I would have told myself too to make sure you're mixing the mash with both sides of your body, not just one repetitive motion.
I went from bodybuilding to yoga. I literally like, I thought being strong is what would help me, but when I realized I can't move a certain way, I'm like, oh fuck.
Every brewery we go to, we're like, are y'all doing yoga in the morning? Are y'all doing your morning stretches?
Yeah.
Everybody needs to conserve their body.
We've talked about this a lot, but it's like it's not a badge of honor or courage that you were able to take pain and just deal with it because it's part of the job.
Yep,
it's just working dumber and harder.
I think that goes back to mine. Yeah, thinking long term, not short term.
Yeah.
I took way too long to take any of that shit seriously.
Yeah.
There's no HR breathing down your neck to move something properly or squat or use your back. Yoga helps a lot, I will say.
Yeah, just stretching. Yeah,
for sure.
Work-life balance. Yeah, I mean, I think now it's finally, it's been talked about consistently. I think especially with like all of our like probably older peers or like same age peers in the industry. I feel like there was like a year there where it was like every event we were at, it was just like, how's your work-life balance? What are you doing outside of work? It was like let's talk about beer, but like what else is bringing you joy? It can't only be the thing that you do for work.
Right. Yeah. We talk about that quite a bit. This will be short. Because it's about mental health. I mean, you find people, and this is such a passionate, it's a very passionate, ambitious, creative, but supremely physical, hardworking, uses so many different sides of your brain. Burnout, I think, happens at a much faster rate 100%. Than a lot of other industries. Yeah. And you start to see that in people, and they get set in patterns, and they don't take care of themselves. And that's how you keep, I think, your passion and some of your longevity in life, but also just enjoyment. Because there are people that are like, I'm the best at what I do, but they fucking hate it every single day. And then that translates to other people. And it's like, I really want everybody that has an idea that wants to be a brewer, you have a space to fucking do so. Like that's, I believe, how it should be. I will say this though, like I don't care for smoothie beers. I'll never brew a smoothie beer. I won't fucking drink a smoothie beer. But I don't want that person, if that's what they want to do, I don't want them to feel like they don't have a space to do so.
Sure.
And that goes along with physical health, mental health. And so I think now we're coming on that tail end, especially after COVID, where people are starting to take it more seriously, being like, oh, alcohol can't be a Band-Aid. Oh, I need to advocate more for myself. Oh, if somebody else isn't going to do it for me, which is never the case. If you don't do it for yourself, nobody else will do it for you. And so it's like you got to be able to take those recognitions for yourself.
Very well said.
Do y'all do anything as a team to like help with that?
You seem like you have good communication, which I think is like super key for the first point, being able to have open conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do we do,
what
is it?
Like, what do y'all, I mean, obviously, like, going to a beer festival or something, you're talking to your peers and whatnot. But, like, as a team, like, what do y'all do to make sure that y'all are...
To have, like, a healthy work-life balance? Yeah, Fonta Flora.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, myself, especially just being in here, I mean, I'm kind of a crazy worker, I guess, in some ways, like, and Todd is as well, but like when we started here, it was just so much like this, like in terms of kind of perfection, and like we were too hard in a lot of things, So I think we've definitely gained that balance now of like being less hard asses with things, just to try to like break things up. I mean, last week we shut down production for a day. I took the whole crew to Sierra Nevada for some lunch and beers, and then Riverbend Malt House, and kind of like an educational day off from here. So it's it's trying to like give people again. I mean, for what we do, we always like close production a little bit early to go foraging for dandelions and stuff like that. Like, let's go outside and like get like this is gonna go into the beer.
It's like recess
for sure. Exactly. So I think it's not just like grinding like all day every day. It's finding that balance that we all need. But it took Todd and I both a little while to like realize that of like if we're gonna be again, thinking long term, we got to, invest in it now.
Yeah.
Love it. For
It does
sure.
help that y'all are on a farm.
Yep,
Yeah,
definitely.
that does help.
Yeah, I mean, y'all are gonna need to walk to the far back of the property too and check
Yeah.
that out because it really is like if I'm having a particularly stressful day or feeling anxious, just trying to take that. And it's times when you don't feel like you have the time when it's
Right.
like, the most important to just kind of like close the computer, stop looking at a fucking screen and take a walk, especially, again, you pointing out our location, it's like we have the ability to disconnect, take a step back, and we can, be, next to a beautiful river in like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah.
There's
Thankful
a-
for that for y'all.
Yeah,
for sure.
there's a reason when kids are oversensitized, they just go lay in grass. It's
Yeah,
around.
yeah,
And I'm like,
totally.
no, let's just make that for every adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just have a grass.
Go lay
patch.
down in the grass. Yeah.
I love that so much. All right, last question. What are y'all excited about for the rest of 2025? Specifically, mainly for Fonta Flora. I will specify that. Y'all can tell us y'all's personal endeavors as well if you want.
Does it sound too like doom and gloom just to say to be existing?
No.
I don't think
I mean,
so.
not at all.
Not in the actual physical state that y'all are in of North Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, I think, we'll be turning 12, this year. I think that is, triumphant. I think we are making the best beer we've ever made, right now, and excited about, the team that we have that is, helping to do that. However, it is in the most challenging, time to be a craft brewery and a growing one, and trying to find that balance of, of how to be sustainable and to be, not be a statistic of, one of the, a brewery that's, closing down, and figuring out how to how to be here for the long term.
Yeah.
So I think 2025 I'm excited about just trying to position us to have that.
Yeah, I love that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to kind of piggyback on that, kind of, we've said it a few times throughout this of how much the business plan has changed from, we're still doing all the more so of the crazy Fonta Flora things we've always done, but now like really, as Todd was saying, like positioning us, we've got a lot of like exciting irons in the fire for distribution wise. Just getting like more recognition for our core brands, brewing more of those. We're so stoked about them. So just getting them to more people, honestly, and like that next like growth phase. I mean, as we were just saying, with none of our flagships are like hazy double IPAs, but as we were saying with those, like Hopbeard, which is our West Coast IPA, we brew it like how we want to with local grain. So it's like if we can be on a store shelf and like kind of give our story to more people, that's what we want.
We love that.
So that's kind of the goal for the year. Yeah.
I love that so much.
Fuck
Well,
yes.
we're excited for y'all to continue to grow and be
we're
yourselves as much as possible.
we're going to preach the good gospel of Fonta
Hell yeah.
Flora.
We love
and
it
others
so
like
much.
you.
I still remember, I'm literally tearing up now that I think about it. I literally remember the first day I had a Fonta Flora beer. And
You had Erde.
I had Erde.
It was in a 6-pack in those green bottles, which
Yeah.
are great.
Amazing.
And I remember our buddy Dwayne, he owns a bottle shop. His face is literally right there.
Oh yeah, on the laptop, Bridge and Tunnel in Astoria.
Bridge and Tunnel in
Dwayne.
Astoria, he handed me a Fonta Flora. And I remember I started my craft beer experience with dark
Yeah, stouts.
stouts.
Yeah.
I liked coffee, chocolates, that kind of thing. So like moving into the sour, spontaneous realm, goose, all the things. It took me a little bit of time. So
And I was working at Fort George at the
Yeah.
time too, where
Cool.
we had no beer that was below 7%. And for the season
But I
we were in.
remember Dwayne being like, "Try this." I never heard of y'all. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is 2020.
No, it's good.
But I didn't know a lot of things anyways. But I remember him handing it to me, and I was just like, And it was called Day. I was like, I could drink that every day. I will drink that every day if I can.
Oh, that's
It was
great.
great. So I'm so excited to be with y'all. So
Thank you for
y'all
sharing
so
that.
much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sincerely, thank you all for the time.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Cheers, y'all.
You go shadow
Cheers.
box out of excitement.